Hello, Sharif here. And today we get to talk a bit about um, consequences, the consequences of our actions, and then the consequences of our inactions. Before we get into that, though, let's go ahead and get into our meditation. And I've actually heard from a couple of you that the meditation is important to you, and I'm glad for that. And it's important to me. And so we will do this. And as usual, I'll start my timer because we're going to do this for 5 minutes. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if you wish to do so. Invite you to slow down your breathing. Invite you to expand your consciousness of your brain, your mind, and the consciousness of your heart in combination with all of the other consciousnesses on the planet. And if you want to start coming back to our center, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes and put your glasses back on if you're me, and we can begin. I was hoping that my first box of books would be here by now. They're arriving today, and I could wave a book around for you. Say, yeah, it's here, it's here. I'll wave it on Monday. Mm. I am, and well, the first box of books is coming today, and hopefully all of them, except for one, is going to go back out to all of you who have purchased books, which is, thank you. I had to buy a whole new set of books, and they're going to be delivered on Monday. So between now and Monday, all the book orders will go out, and I definitely appreciate all of you for doing that. Except for you who haven't bought your book yet, in which case I want you to buy your book, or buy a few. We've got folks who have made multiple orders here. Had a request in just yesterday for someone who wants to have a book shipped to a relative who's in prison. And I thought that was definitely something that they should support, and I think it's something that Commonwealth should support. So I'm going to have a special discount for folks who want to mail books either to people who are in prison or people who are overseas in the military, and we'll figure out what that discount looks like, and I'll let you know that probably in the next couple of days. Okay, let's get started on this subject. And my title for the subject is What's Being Done in Our Name. And I thought about this because there's been a little bit of buzz on the internet about this sale of cluster bombs to Ukraine. I'm not sure we sold them or gave them away. But the bottom line is people saying that this is that violence. It's in itself is evil. War is evil, but then you've got some behaviors that rise above kind of the garden variety of war type violence, and that is. What fits into that category is gassing of civilians, obviously all nuclear weapons, and the cluster bombs, which are theoretically supposedly against soldiers, but people wind up using them against civilians. I think it's really important for us to recognize that the question of morality exists in the world, and although we don't talk about it, although our leaders, even our so-called religious leaders, don't talk about it, it's something that we should be talking about, and we should be the spiritual leaders that we want. Not the ones that are spending almost all of their time covering their own butts for their own misdeeds, or not the happy feel good folks all the time who don't really understand that positive energy is really important, but it's also important for us to recognize why we need that positive energy. To recognize that despite the fact that I have been, I may be ignorant of what's going on, There's a price to that ignorance, and that I need to be um, proactive in looking at what's being done in my name, what's being done, um, not again, not just in the realm of violence and war, but what's being done by our economic leaders, our political leaders, our social and cultural leaders, and recognize that ultimately we have to be those leaders. So our ignorance, not knowing something, is not an excuse for inaction. Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do something. Um, so I'll tell you a couple of instances where we don't have the luxury of saying I didn't know. Um, well, as of right now, you are co-responsible for the fact that we are shipping cluster bombs to the Ukraine. Oh, I was going to go into an explanation of what cluster bombs are and how they're different from other bombs. You look it up, okay? I mean, like, why would you rely on someone else on something that is really important? You look it up and make a determination for yourself. Um, but we're selling them or giving them away to Ukraine to use against Russia. How do you think the Russians are going to feel about that? And maybe, just maybe, we need to take that into consideration. How much money we make by selling the cluster bombs is irrelevant to how much damage we can do in the world. I'll tell you a situation that happened in the 80s, I think it was. There was a terrorist plane hijacking that happened in the Middle East, and a bunch of Americans on the plane, and the hijacking went on for several days, and the folks who took over the plane were going through the passenger list, and they took on one of the passengers out on the tarmac and shot him dead. Only one who died in this hijacking, and everyone was saying, why'd they shoot that one person? And people were speculating, oh, it's because he was Jewish, but there were lots of other Jews on the plane and they didn't get shot. As it turned out, the reason that they shot him was because he was from New Jersey. And for those of us who have been through, well, I lived in New Jersey. There's people who think that's a good enough reason to shoot somebody. But seriously, the reason that he got shot was because the United States sent the battleship New Jersey over to Lebanon and bombed the heck out of Lebanon, bombarding a city, bombarding Beirut with a battleship that's literally 20 miles away. You don't see the ship fire. You don't see the ship at all. All you see is your neighborhood explode. And they didn't know that the battleship New Jersey was not owned by the people of New Jersey, that the state of New Jersey was not bombing them. They took this guy from New Jersey out and killed him on the tarmac. We're responsible for that, whether we knew it or not. The question is, what the heck were we doing bombing Lebanon? I guess it was a year or two ago. um, these soldiers, U.S. soldiers, were ambushed and killed in West Africa by a terrorist organization. And nobody in the press asked the question, what are they doing in West Africa? I don't remember us bombing West Africa. I don't remember us declaring war on Mali or Niger or Nigeria or wherever they got killed. Well, we didn't. We just think that we can go around the world and do anything we want to do, and there aren't any consequences. There are always consequences. Rumi has a story, a teaching that says a robber breaks into someone's house and they begin to build a gallows to hang him. You see the house robbing and you see the gallows. They don't look alike, but they correspond. The battleship New Jersey blasting the heck out of Lebanon doesn't look anything like the World Trade Center towers collapsing and burning, but they correspond. If we don't like that correspondence, then what we have to do is start asking ourselves, should we be doing this action? Now that the movie Oppenheimer is out, and I have not seen it yet, there's a question. There's a lot of questions around the morality of atomic weaponry, and and why why did we use it in Japan, and why Oppenheimer went from being, yes, we have to use this, to no, we should not, and we cannot use this. We dropped 2 nuclear weapons on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We dropped 2 because we only had 2. If we had 3, we would have dropped 3. If we had 5, we would have dropped 5. We, the American people, were ignorant and are ignorant about the destructive power of nuclear weapons. We don't get it. We've been kept in ignorance. Mainly because if we actually saw the damage that these things can do, our morality would not allow us to build more. So from the very beginning, all of us were not allowed to see the real destructive power of the bomb, of what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We weren't allowed to see anything except the image, the long distance images from miles away. We see the flattened ground. You see the little bits of rubble that were sticking up from the flattened ground, and that was it. When you saw the burn victims, the nuclear burn victims, you always saw them in clinical situations. You saw them after the wounds had been closed and cleaned. You saw them with a doctor wearing a white jacket. You saw them with a nurse, and you saw them not writhing in pain and screaming for water. Okay. The blast like literally blows all the liquid out of your body, and you are dying. Well, you're dying of everything, but one of the things you're dying from is thirst. You don't see any of that. because no one wanted you to see that. Now, those pictures exist. I was presenting in the conflict resolution um, conference in Russia some years ago in St. Petersburg, Russia, and one of our students in the conflict resolution program in Portland had traveled to Russia to make a presentation on the consciousness behind nuclear weapons. She was from Japan, and she said, for the Japanese people, we saw all, well, first of all, we lived through it. And second of all, we saw all the images. And she started showing us the images that the Japanese people saw of people literally bleeding out in the streets, people with their skin blown off, walking around trying to figure out what happened. It was, they had no idea. And we still have no idea what can be, what can be done with that. And so it's not like the pictures don't exist. It's that you, as an American, are not allowed to see them. Because if you saw them, we would say nuclear weapons are immoral and we're not going to do this anymore and we're going to get rid of our nuclear weapons. And our leaders don't want us to do that. So I was doing some work with some military folks who ran what is called the War College. That's a war college. You can get a degree. And they were saying they do an annual exercise. It's a war game simulation, and they take a current crisis like Taiwan and China, Russia and Ukraine, Iran, and just about everybody, and they look at inserting the U.S. Military force in that situation. And the question is, how quickly will the U.S. population escalate a war to a nuclear level? They divide this exercise into 3 different groups. They get a bunch of ordinary civilians, just people off the street. They know as much about the military capability as you do. Then you get politicians who are supposed to know a little bit more than that about nuclear weapons, about military capabilities, including nuclear weapons. And then they get military people, the people who are in the military or who have been in the military. And they look at which group in this role-playing game, which group uses how much force to achieve this hypothetical U.S. interest. Invariably, the military folks are the ones that use the least amount of force, followed by the politicians. They use a lot more force, but not nearly as much as the civilians. The military folks never, ever, ever use the nuclear option. The civilians use it almost every time. Oh yeah, let's just nuke them. They make it sound like a game. How many of our war games have nuclear options in them? And all this is preparing our minds for the things that our mind shouldn't be prepared for, should not be getting prepared for. Um, I saw in one of the trailers to Oppenheimer, one of oh, by the way, I did see there's several Oppenheimer documentaries, and I saw them to prepare myself to seeing the movie. And one of the people who worked on the nuclear bomb said, um, it would be better for us to lose. It would be better for us for America to lose a war than to unleash this on the world. It's the immaturity of saying, well, if I can't have the world, you can't have it either. And at some point in time, we are going to get mature. What a concept. At some point in time, we are going to say, no, you can't do that, and make that no stick. And yes, we should be doing this and make that yes stick. Okay, I was going to tell another story. Oh yes, I'm going to go ahead and tell the story. Okay. This happened, I think, in the 90s. There's a really bad earthquake in Pakistan. And up in the mountainous regions where you can't get supplies in, etc. At the particular time, we didn't particularly like Pakistan at the time, so nothing we were going to do. There's nothing, we weren't going to send any troops over. We weren't going to help them. We were not going to send any humanitarian aid. But the military realized that they were in the process of decommissioning these mobile army surgical hospital tents. Literally the MASH tent from the Korean War. And what this thing is a complete hospital that's packaged in a box. You drop it out of an airplane, and when you pull the cord on it, the whole thing opens up into a hospital complete with surgical tools, complete with all the antiseptics you need, the beds, the whole nine yards is in there. Well, these things had gotten old, and the army was about to take them and throw them in a dump, literally throw them away. And so someone said, why don't we just drop them on Pakistan? Maybe somebody there can figure out how to use these things. It actually will keep our landfills empty. So instead of dumping this in a landfill, they literally took them and parachuted them into Pakistan. And in the region of Pakistan where these tents went in, you can't find any people who say bad things about America, because what they say is, America helped save my children. These tents, when they figured out how to open them up and figured out that there were bandages and splints and everything they needed to help themselves, they say, thank you, thank you, thank you, America, and it cost us nothing. What we have to do is start thinking, instead of building the next generation of nuclear weapons, which we're doing right now, maybe we should be building aid. Maybe we should be looking at what's actually going on in the world and responding in appropriate ways, responding to the problems that we've got, as opposed to protecting ourselves from theoretical wars we may never fight. We design weapons that are obsolete without ever being used, and then we have to design new ones and new ones and new ones. Maybe we just need to stop designing weapons, stop designing things that hurt, maim, and kill people, and start looking at what should we be doing right now to answer the real needs that we've got right in our world, in the entire world, but also focusing in on what's happening right here in our world, in our own society. Okay, enough of me talking here. We're going to start because the books will be going out today. Hey, we're going to start talking about the elements that are going into the book. What does it mean for us to become colony humans? What does it mean for us in terms of being one with each other in a practical sense, in a political sense, in an economic sense, in a cultural sense, in a spiritual sense? And we're going to start examining that next week. And in the meantime, may all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend. I'll talk to you later. Bye.